Good evening. Welcome to Power and Policy. We're your home for understanding the complex, often unseen forces that are constantly reshaping our global industries and the political landscapes they inhabit. It's my job, and our promise here, to cut through the noise and get to the heart of what truly matters. To show you how decisions made in boardrooms and capital cities, thousands of miles apart, can directly impact our lives, our economies, and our future. Tonight, we're turning our attention to a profound economic transformation, one that's quietly but decisively redrawing the familiar map of North America, a continent long defined by specific alliances and trade patterns. We're diving deep into the burgeoning relationship between Mexico and China. This isn't just about handshakes and trade delegations. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar investments, strategic partnerships in critical sectors, and a potential seismic shift in the balance of trade and industrial power across this continent. For decades, Mexico's economic destiny seemed almost inextricably linked to the United States, cemented by agreements like NAFTA and more recently the USMCA. That old anchor, however, appears to be loosening as Mexico actively forges a new, assertive path, looking eastward to diversify its opportunities and strengthen its own global standing. This evolving alliance isn't happening in a vacuum, nor is it limited to a single industry. We're seeing significant Chinese capital and influence penetrate key areas, from the automotive sector, including the critical electric vehicle market, to renewable energy projects and the increasingly vital extraction of lithium, the white gold of the 21st century. These developments are creating undeniable ripples, challenging the long-standing, often taken for granted, US-Mexico partnership. The question we must ask is stark. Could this signal the dawn of an entirely new economic era in North America? Let's examine the 7 powerful reasons why this shift is so significant and what it could mean for all of us. For generations, the economic narrative of North America was largely written in 2 languages, English and Spanish, with the US dollar as the dominant currency of exchange. Mexico's economy, for better or worse, found itself deeply intertwined with that of its northern neighbor. Trade agreements, most notably the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, implemented back in 1994, and its more recent successor, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, effective in 2020, codified this intricate relationship. These pacts were designed to facilitate a seamless flow of goods, services and investment, positioning the United States unequivocally as Mexico's largest trading partner and ensuring a profound integration of our 2 economies across countless sectors. This dependency, while offering certain advantages like market access and investment flows, also came with inherent vulnerabilities for Mexico. Economic downturns in the US, shifts in American trade policy, or even political rhetoric could send immediate shockwaves south of the border. The reliance on a single, overwhelmingly dominant partner meant that Mexico's economic fortunes were often subject to decisions made in Washington, D.C., limiting its autonomy and strategic flexibility on the global stage. It's a dynamic that many within Mexico have long sought to recalibrate, searching for ways to diversify their economic partnerships and reduce this pronounced reliance. However, the global landscape is in constant flux, and recent trends strongly suggest that Mexico is now actively, and perhaps more assertively than ever before, charting a more independent economic course. This isn't about severing ties with the United States entirely. That would be neither feasible nor desirable for Mexico. Instead, it's about broadening its horizons, cultivating new relationships, and strategically positioning itself as a more autonomous player in the complex game of international commerce. The desire for greater economic sovereignty is palpable, driving a new era of Mexican foreign and economic policy. We are seeing tangible evidence of this shift in the growing economic engagement with nations beyond North America, and China, with its immense capital and global ambitions, has emerged as a particularly significant new partner. Between 2018 and 2023, a period marked by global uncertainties and trade tensions, Chinese investment in Mexico reached approximately $2.3 billion. While this figure might seem modest compared to US investment, it's the trajectory and the strategic nature of these investments that command attention. Even in 2023, a year of complex global economics, $150 million of that total flowed into the country, signaling continued Chinese commitment. These investments are not randomly scattered. They are targeted, flowing into critical sectors that are pivotal for Mexico's future growth and China's global strategy. We're talking about automotive manufacturing, a traditional strength for Mexico now being infused with new technology and capital. Renewable energy projects, vital for sustainable development and energy security, and significant infrastructure developments that enhance Mexico's capacity to trade and connect with the world. This diversification is a calculated move by Mexico aimed at reducing its economic vulnerability. For Mexico, this strategic pivot offers a multitude of potential benefits. It opens up new avenues for investment, provides access to different technologies, creates competition that can drive innovation, and ultimately boosts its standing and leverage on the global economic stage. By cultivating stronger ties with China, Mexico is not just finding a new customer or investor, it's signaling its intent to operate with greater independence, making decisions based on a broader set of national interests rather than being primarily influenced by the economic gravity of its northern neighbor. But for the United States, this evolving dynamic marks a critical juncture, a moment that necessitates a profound re-evaluation of long-held economic assumptions and regional strategies. The notion of North America as a largely self-contained economic bloc, dominated by US influence, is being actively challenged. This shift forces Washington to consider how to adapt its own policies to maintain its influence and competitiveness in a region that is clearly becoming more multipolar. It's a wake-up call that the status quo is no longer guaranteed. When we talk about China's growing influence in Mexico, it's crucial to understand the scale and the strategic intent behind its financial commitments. This isn't just about tentative exploratory investments. We are witnessing a deliberate and substantial deployment of capital into key sectors of the Mexican economy. The numbers themselves are quite revealing. In the year 2023 alone, it's reported that China invested a staggering $2.72 billion directly into Mexico's automotive sector. To put that into perspective, this single-sector investment accounted for an astonishing 72% of China's total foreign direct investment in Mexico for that year. This level of concentration speaks volumes about China's priorities. These are not merely superficial investments aimed at setting up basic assembly lines to take advantage of lower labor costs, though that certainly plays a part. What we're observing is a much deeper, more integrated approach. Chinese capital is flowing into the establishment of sophisticated research and development centers within Mexico, fostering local innovation and adapting technologies for the regional market. Furthermore, significant funds are being allocated towards workforce development programs, training Mexican engineers and technicians to operate and maintain advanced manufacturing facilities. This creates a skilled labor pool that benefits both Chinese companies and the Mexican economy in the long run. Beyond R&D and workforce training, these investments are also critically focused on building out robust and resilient supply chain networks. This involves partnerships with local Mexican suppliers, investment in logistics and transportation infrastructure, and the creation of an ecosystem that can support large-scale manufacturing operations. By embedding themselves so thoroughly within the Mexican industrial fabric, Chinese firms are not just building factories. They are cultivating long-term industrial ties that are designed to endure, solidifying their presence and operational capabilities within North America for years, if not decades to come. The tangible benefits for Mexico are undeniable and multifaceted. Firstly, there's the immediate impact of job creation. New factories and R&D centers mean new employment opportunities for Mexican citizens, ranging from assembly line workers to highly skilled engineers and managers. This contributes to local economic development and can help alleviate unemployment pressures. Secondly, the influx of Chinese investment often brings with it advanced technology and manufacturing processes that might otherwise take longer to arrive, thereby enhancing Mexico's industrial competitiveness and productivity. This technological transfer can have spillover effects, benefiting other domestic industries as well. Thirdly, these substantial investments inject significant economic momentum into the Mexican economy. They signal confidence in Mexico's stability and growth potential, which can in turn attract further investment from other international players. This creates a positive feedback loop, fostering a more dynamic and diversified economic environment. However, it's precisely this growing economic proximity and integration with China that raises complex questions and potential concerns from a US policy standpoint, and indeed for other established players in the North American market. The strategic genius from China's perspective is that these investments position Chinese companies with direct and potentially preferential access to the vast North American market. By establishing manufacturing bases in Mexico, Chinese firms can potentially leverage the provisions of the USMCA to export goods into the United States and Canada with reduced tariffs or other trade barriers that they might face if exporting directly from mainland China. This is a clever way to navigate complex international trade regulations and gain a competitive edge. For the United States, the implications are significant and warrant careful consideration. The prospect of Chinese-made goods, particularly in strategic sectors like automotive, flooding American markets at highly competitive prices, produced just across the southern border, presents a new and formidable challenge to domestic industries. It also raises questions about supply chain security, intellectual property protection, and the long-term strategic balance of manufacturing power within the continent. This isn't just an economic issue. It's a matter of national interest and regional influence that Washington cannot afford to ignore. In the global pursuit of a greener future, one mineral has emerged as a cornerstone of the transition: lithium. Often dubbed white gold, this alkali metal is an absolutely essential component in the production of high-performance batteries that power everything from our smartphones and laptops to, most critically, electric vehicles, EVs, and large-scale renewable energy storage systems. As the world pivots away from fossil fuels, the demand for lithium is skyrocketing, making access to and control of its supply chains a matter of immense strategic and economic importance. Mexico, as it turns out, is sitting on significant, largely untapped lithium reserves. These reserves, most notably concentrated in the northern state of Sonora, have not gone unnoticed on the global stage. They have captured the intense interest of nations and corporations eager to secure their stake in the clean energy revolution. And among the most proactive and strategically minded players in this new gold rush is China. China has been methodically working to secure access to critical raw materials worldwide, and lithium is very high on its priority list, given its ambition to dominate the electric vehicle and battery manufacturing sectors globally. A significant indicator of China's broader strategic interests in Mexico's resource sector came to light in 2023. While not directly a lithium deal, the agreement inked by the Chinese firm Zhejiang for a 20-year supply of liquefied natural gas, LNG, with Mexico Pacific is telling. Such long-term energy deals often pave the way for deeper cooperation in other resource-based industries. They signal a willingness to engage in substantial decades-long partnerships, building trust and infrastructure that can be leveraged for other strategic acquisitions, including access to critical minerals like lithium. China's burgeoning presence and keen interest in Mexico's lithium mining sector align perfectly with its well-established global strategy. China is already a dominant force in the midstream and downstream segments of the battery supply chain, meaning it excels in processing lithium carbonate and hydroxide and manufacturing battery cells and packs. By actively seeking to control more of the upstream mining and extraction of lithium, China aims to create a vertically integrated powerhouse, strengthening its grip on every stage of the process, from the mine to the final product. This strategic control over lithium supply chains has profound implications. It allows China to influence global pricing, ensuring a stable and cost-effective supply for its own massive domestic EV and battery industries. It also gives Beijing significant leverage in determining the pace and direction of the global energy transition, potentially making other nations dependent on Chinese technology and resources. Furthermore, it reinforces China's leadership in EV technology and manufacturing, a sector it views as crucial for its future economic growth and technological supremacy. Meanwhile, the United States finds itself in a challenging position, essentially playing catch-up in a race where China has had a significant head start. For years, the US has been more reliant on importing processed lithium and battery components rather than developing a comprehensive domestic supply chain. Now there's a growing awareness of the vulnerabilities this creates, both in terms of resource security and economic competitiveness. The push to onshore or friendshore critical mineral supply chains is gaining momentum, but it takes time and massive investment to build mines, processing facilities, and manufacturing plants. The competition for Mexico's lithium, therefore, is not just an economic contest, it's a geopolitical one. Securing access to these reserves is vital for the US to reduce its dependence on potentially adversarial sources and to ensure that its own burgeoning EV industry can thrive. The US must now rapidly advance its strategies for resource security, technological leadership in battery production, and diplomatic engagement with resource-rich nations like Mexico if it hopes to avoid being outmaneuvered in the quest for the white gold that will power the 21st century. The automotive industry is undergoing its most significant transformation in over a century, with the global shift towards electric vehicles accelerating at an unprecedented pace. Nations and corporations are racing to secure their position in this burgeoning market, and China has emerged as a formidable leader, not just in EV adoption, but also in manufacturing and technological innovation. To consolidate and expand its global reach, China is now strategically looking to establish production bases in key international markets, and Mexico presents an almost irresistible proposition for its North American ambitions. Mexico's appeal as a potential EV manufacturing hub for Chinese automakers is multifaceted. Firstly, the country boasts a strong, well-established automotive heritage, with decades of experience in mass-producing vehicles for global brands. This means there's an existing skilled workforce, a network of local suppliers, and a general industrial know-how that can be readily adapted to EV production. Secondly, Mexico offers relatively cost-effective labor compared to the United States or Canada, which is a significant factor in the highly competitive automotive industry. This allows for lower production costs, making Chinese EVs potentially more price competitive in the North American market. Perhaps the most compelling factor, however, is Mexico's geographic proximity to the United States, the largest single automotive market in North America. Manufacturing EVs in Mexico allows Chinese companies to significantly reduce shipping costs and lead times compared to exporting vehicles all the way from Asia. Furthermore, and critically, producing within North America potentially allows these companies to navigate or even bypass US tariffs and import restrictions that might be imposed on vehicles manufactured in China, especially if they can meet the local content requirements stipulated under the USMCA. We are already seeing concrete moves in this direction. Leading Chinese automakers, some of whom are already global giants in the EV space, like BYD, Build Your Dreams, and SAIC Motor, Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation, are not just talking about Mexico. They are actively laying the groundwork to establish significant manufacturing plants within the country. This involves scouting locations, negotiating with local and federal authorities, and planning investments in assembly lines, battery pack facilities, and supporting infrastructure. These are not speculative ventures, but calculated strategic decisions aimed at capturing a share of the lucrative North American EV market. For Mexico, this influx of investment in the high-tech EV sector promises substantial benefits. It means more jobs, not just in direct manufacturing, but also in ancillary industries and services. It brings cutting-edge technology related to battery production, electric drivetrains, and autonomous driving systems, which can help upgrade Mexico's overall industrial capabilities. Furthermore, it positions Mexico as a key player in the future of mobility, ensuring its automotive sector remains relevant and competitive in an era of rapid technological change. This aligns perfectly with Mexico's broader goals of economic development and technological advancement. Yet, from the perspective of the United States, and particularly its domestic auto industry, this development presents a new and complex set of challenges. The US government has been actively promoting domestic EV production through incentives and industrial policy, aiming to create American jobs and secure American leadership in this critical technology. The prospect of highly competitive, technologically advanced Chinese EVs being manufactured just across the border, potentially benefiting from favorable trade terms under USMCA, creates a direct competitive threat to established American automakers and their supply chains. The US auto industry must now prepare to compete not only with established global players from Japan, South Korea and Europe, but also with a new wave of agile and aggressive Chinese EV manufacturers operating from a North American base. This will necessitate accelerated innovation, greater efficiency, and potentially a re-evaluation of trade policies and enforcement mechanisms to ensure a level playing field. The race for EV dominance in North America is intensifying, and Mexico is rapidly becoming a key battleground, with China making assertive moves to establish a significant beachhead. Chapter 5. As we observe China methodically expanding its economic and strategic influence in Mexico, with what appears to be surgical precision and a long-term vision, it becomes imperative to examine the other side of the equation, the role and actions, or perhaps inactions, of the United States in the region. For decades, the US enjoyed a largely unchallenged position as the dominant economic and political partner for Mexico. However, a series of policy decisions and a perceived lack of consistent engagement from Washington may have inadvertently created openings that China is now astutely exploiting. One of the key areas where US policy has arguably faltered is in the realm of trade. While the USMCA was eventually ratified, the period leading up to it, and indeed some interactions since, have been characterized by trade disputes, the imposition or threat of erratic tariffs on Mexican goods, and a general sense of unpredictability. This has, at times, strained the bilateral relationship and undermined the confidence of Mexican businesses and policymakers in the US as a consistently reliable partner. Such uncertainty can make diversification, including closer ties with a more predictable economic power like China, appear increasingly attractive. Furthermore, inconsistent diplomatic messaging and a perceived lack of a coherent long-term strategic vision for the US-Mexico relationship have also played a part. There have been moments where the focus has been overwhelmingly on singular issues like immigration or security, sometimes at the expense of nurturing the broader economic and political partnership. When a neighboring country feels that its primary interactions with a superpower are transactional or crisis-driven, rather than based on mutual respect and shared long-term goals, it naturally begins to explore other avenues for collaboration and support. Historically, the United States was widely seen in Mexico, and indeed across much of Latin America, as a primary engine of economic growth, a source of vital investment, and a beacon of stability. American businesses were key drivers of industrial development, and U.S. markets were the main destination for Mexican exports. This perception, however, has been eroded by some of the aforementioned policy missteps, and by a sense that US attention has, at times, been diverted elsewhere, or that its approach to the region has lacked the sustained strategic focus it warrants. Into this perceived void, China has stepped with a markedly different approach. Chinese engagement tends to be characterized by a focus on strategic long-term economic partnerships, often framed in terms of mutual benefit and non-interference in domestic affairs. They come offering substantial investment in infrastructure, technology transfer in key sectors, and access to their vast domestic market, often with fewer political conditions attached compared to traditional Western partners. This patient, cooperative, and economically focused approach is proving effective in winning hearts, minds, and crucially, economic allegiances. Without a significant course correction and a renewed commitment to a more consistent, respectful, and strategically grounded partnership with Mexico, the United States risks more than just economic competition. It risks a gradual erosion of its traditional sphere of influence in its own hemisphere. Losing Mexico not just as a primary trade partner, but also as a key strategic ally, would have profound geopolitical implications for the US, altering the security and economic landscape of North America in ways that are difficult to fully predict, but are unlikely to be favorable to US interests. The challenge for the US now is to demonstrate through concrete actions and sustained engagement that it remains Mexico's most valuable and reliable partner. This requires moving beyond reactive policies and developing a proactive, comprehensive strategy that addresses Mexico's economic aspirations, acknowledges its growing global stature, and rebuilds trust through consistent and mutually beneficial cooperation. The competition for influence is well underway, and the US can no longer afford to take its relationship with Mexico for granted. Chapter 6. Mexico's geographic position is in many ways its destiny. Situated at a crucial crossroads bridging North and South America, and with extensive coastlines on both the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico, the country is a natural conduit for global trade flows. For centuries, it has been a key player in regional commerce, but its potential as a truly global logistics and manufacturing hub is now being realized more fully than ever before, particularly as it deepens its economic ties with new partners like China. This strategic positioning is becoming increasingly central to its evolving role in the international economic order. By actively cultivating a more diversified set of international relationships, especially the burgeoning partnership with China, Mexico is not merely attracting investment, it is fundamentally transforming its capacity and significance as a global trade nexus. This isn't just about increasing the volume of goods passing through its ports or manufactured within its borders. It's about enhancing its connectivity, improving its infrastructure, and positioning itself as an indispensable link in complex international supply chains that span continents and oceans. Initiatives like China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, while sometimes controversial, are contributing to this transformation by helping to fund and develop critical infrastructure projects across Mexico. We are seeing investments in modernizing and expanding ports on both coasts, making them capable of handling the largest modern container ships. There's also a focus on upgrading and building new highways, rail networks, which are essential for efficiently moving goods from ports to manufacturing centers and onward to consumer markets, both domestically and for export. This modernization of Mexico's infrastructure, partly fueled by Chinese capital and expertise, has a dual effect. Internally, it boosts economic efficiency, reduces transportation costs, and stimulates regional development. Externally, it enhances Mexico's attractiveness as a location for foreign investment and as a transit route for international cargo. This evolution also gradually decreases the historical reliance on US transport corridors for certain types of trade, offering alternative pathways and opening up new trade routes that might not have been viable before. The implications of Mexico's growing clout as a trade hub are far-reaching. It has the potential to reshape supply chains, not just within the Americas, but across the Pacific and Atlantic as well. As companies seek to diversify their manufacturing bases and nearshore their operations to reduce risks associated with long, complex supply lines, Mexico, with its improving infrastructure and strategic location, becomes an increasingly compelling option. This could lead to a significant reordering of where goods are made, stored, and shipped globally. For instance, goods manufactured in Asia destined for the US's coast might find it more efficient to dock at a modernized Mexican Pacific port, be transported overland via new rail highway links, and then enter the US through its southern border, or even be shipped onward from a Mexican Gulf port. Similarly, resources or manufactured goods from South America could find easier access to Asian markets via Mexican Pacific ports. This enhanced connectivity makes Mexico a more versatile and central player in the intricate dance of global logistics. Ultimately, Mexico's ascendance as a pivotal node in global trade networks signifies its maturation as an economic power. It's moving beyond being primarily a supplier to the US market and is instead becoming a more autonomous and influential actor, capable of shaping trade patterns and attracting investment from a wider array of global partners. This shift not only benefits Mexico, but also introduces new dynamics and competitive pressures into the global trading system, forcing other nations, including the United States, to adapt to a more complex and interconnected world. China is no longer a distant trading partner. It is firmly in play within North America, establishing roots and building influence in ways that will have lasting consequences for the entire region. The implications of this emerging alliance are profound, and will continue to unfold in the years and decades to come. It will necessitate a fundamental rethinking of regional dynamics, not just for the United States and Mexico, but also for Canada and other nations with stakes in North America's future. The old certainties are fading, and a new, more complex and potentially more competitive era is dawning, with the Mexico-China axis poised to be a defining feature of this new landscape. So, what we're witnessing here is far more than just a series of business deals or trade agreements. The strengthening ties between Mexico and China are fundamentally strategic in nature. This isn't merely about economics, it's about influence, it's about access, and it's about positioning for the future. This new alignment has the very real potential to define the trajectory of trade, the adoption of new technologies, and the delicate balance of power across North America for generations to come. It's a slow-motion shift, but one with powerful undercurrents. The United States, for so long the undisputed heavyweight in this hemisphere, now stands at a significant crossroads. The comfortable assumptions of the past are being challenged directly. The critical question is, will the US recalibrate its policies? Will it engage more strategically and consistently with its neighbors, particularly Mexico, to maintain its influence and competitiveness? Or will it find itself increasingly outpaced and outmaneuvered in its own backyard, as new global alliances take root and flourish? As these new partnerships form and solidify, the future of North America is actively being rewritten, and the ink, as they say, is drying fast. This evolving landscape raises so many questions for all of us. What are your thoughts on this shifting dynamic? Do you believe the US can or even should reclaim its traditional leadership role? And if so, how? Or are we witnessing the irreversible dawn of a new, more multipolar world order right here in North America? We truly want to hear your perspective. Please share your thoughts and insights in the comments section below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Power and Policy for more deep dives into the critical intersections of energy, trade, and global strategy. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered.